Hello everyone, Xile Grayson here. So, I have been listening to the Soul Reaver soundtrack, well, a Lilith, and I love the track, I will say that, but as I've been like researching the character, the other thing as well, like my cousin had the comic, and so when I've been reading like what people have been saying and seeing the different aspects of the character and the comic and how suddenly there's this new character that's just thrown into the mix and they're now going to focus on that, I honestly feel like it's one of this is something that I'm really sick to death of. Why is it when you have those characters, you know, you've got that franchise, you are allowed to use anything in that universe, do people create random characters and shoehorning characters that may try and push in something that they feel like it doesn't, and then they sort of like there's the grand character that just never really get mentioned at all in the original content? That is the thing that sort of knocks me a bit. Now, the reason why I say that is because I want to work on a certain IP that has long since been... We haven't seen anything of it in the last 30 years, but there is a huge fan base out there who has been really open their arms to me when I've been showing some of the things that I want to do and some of the content that I've made. Hell, if you go into the Xiled One YouTube channel, you'll find one of the videos where I try to make what a video game would present as in that world. And obviously, I had to create a character that I couldn't use any of the main characters that I wanted to, so I had to make my own. And when I wrote a fan fiction set in that universe, I called it Forever Knight's New Blood, and it followed two young vampires who were still like new characters, but it still represented the history of that franchise. Like for me, I wanted it where there was one of the main villains that I really hated because they destroyed one of my favourite characters, so it was them going after him, trying to redeem a character that everyone loves, but we all know when we see the series they really do destroy that character. So it was me doing that to try and fix it, and then once that was done, then we was going to move forward to them trying to find the original protagonist. That was the original idea, because at the time I couldn't use anything really. I had to like do sort of hints to it, and when I see people who have got, like, I mean, look what happened with Star Wars, right? Soul Reaver's basically having what's happening with Star Wars. With Star Wars, when that first was announced that we were getting new movies, they could have done everything possible. They had the actors at the time, you know, we had, you know, you've got Harrison Ford, we had Mark Hamill. We had Mark Hamill, we had Carrie Fisher, right? We had those actors around, and so you could have done something to set up to move forward with the new characters. That didn't do very well, and it was more about like, oh, this character's more important than the whole of the universe. It just did not make sense, and it ruined, I feel like, the Star Wars franchise, and all these like moments where we could have really utilised the talent that we had back then. We could have done something really great, but again, it was all because someone wanted to throw in their personality, their whatever they wanted to, like they wanted to force something in that just doesn't work with the story. It didn't matter about the lore. They weren't really fans. They'd never really gone back and went, actually, this is what we could do. These are the areas where there was just blank. We could fill those out. We could expand upon that, and that's why, like, when they did Obi-Wan didn't need to be made because that area should have been left. Obviously, he's meant to be in hiding, but you know they did what they did because they completely didn't care about the lore and what was already present there. They wanted to shoehorn in things that they just knew that they could, you know, they couldn't do, but they wanted to put them in anyway because they had no other ideas. That's how I feel like with this new story. Like, and apparently we've got a new game which is Ascendance, which is again building on that story, which is like, you know, we've waited years, you know, nearly 2 decades for a Soul Reaver game, and we are getting this instead. It's a bit of a piss take, because if it was, I read somewhere that they were saying like, oh, it could have been there to gauge on the fans to see if it would be financially viable. No, it doesn't. It literally, I mean, they did the remasters. Now I love the full-blown remake, but the remasters every time I've seen them been announced, people have jumped on them. I mean, I've bought both of them. I bought Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered, and I've bought Legacy of Kain Defiance. Hell, I even bought some of the DLC because I wanted some of the skins. Like, I wanted the human Raziel. I mean, the vampire Raziel. I also wanted him, like, the shifter, because when I saw that concept art for the first time, I thought, that was fucking cool. This is when I was in my teens, and I saw that, and I thought, that was fucking cool. And I wanted that, and so I got it, you know. So, and I've been playing it, and Legacy of Kain Defiance is just, it's still a good game. I still enjoy it. Even though someone said it's a bit like Devil May Cry, and I've realised that there is elements of Devil May Cry thrown into the mix. But, you know, there's so many different things. Like, if it was me and I had to write a story set in Legacy of Kain, if I was suddenly given the rights to Legacy of Kain, there's only one place I would want to go, and that is literally Seraphim. I would want to make a game where we play as Raziel, as a vampire hunter. I would have wanted to play that, where we see him at the very beginning fighting vampires, you know, getting this reputation to Kain. So when Kain finally, you know, you have this big boss battle, it ends with you thinking you've won. You know, you've beaten Kain, you've beaten this big vampire lord, and everyone's celebrating. You know, you have all the brothers that you see in Soul Reaver, and then they all go to sleep, and then Kain sneaks in and turns them all, and then you set up the next game. So then, obviously, at the end of that, because she's setting up the next game, and the next game is Raziel as a vampire, and it would have to be like Bloodborne. You have to be Dark Souls, where you are literally, you know, killing people, getting your blood, just becoming so powerful, unlocking your powers, and then getting to that point where you finally take on this, like, you could say like a rival vampire lord, and then you delaborize him. And I'm using Vampire Masquerade terms there, but you take in his blood, and then you become the winged vampire, and then obviously you know what happens at the end of it. I feel like with the story of LALF, when I heard that they was doing a comic and they said this was going to be a prequel, that's what I was thinking it was going to be. We was going to see Raziel as a Seraphim, and then him becoming a vampire, and then him rising up. That was what I thought we were going to get. Not when they suddenly throw in a character that suddenly has these wings, and it's all an amulet that gives him these abilities. It's such a stupid thing. It literally does feel like Star Wars, where like they suddenly changed it so the crystals weren't like synthetic and organic, and when you get like the red crystals that were synthetic. No, it was your soul, and you had to bleed it dry and pour in all your anger and hate and crack the soul. You know, stuff like that. It's just shit. Where like it made sense what the original one is. So the fact that Raziel, that's what everyone says, it was an evolution. Like because even sometimes he says even his abilities then grew to such a state that he surpassed his lord. He surpassed Kain, and that's why Kain did what he did. You know, so it's sort of shoehorning in a character that doesn't need to be there. It could have been done many different ways. Like I said, we could have gone for the Southend Brotherhood. Maybe even jump forward. Like, I seriously want to see what Dead Sun was going to be like. I did like the look of it. I thought it was so cool. And then apparently the guy who's working on Deja Sonata, he was also working on a Legacy of Kain remake. And when I saw the concept, I thought, fucking hell, yes, this is what we need. Why can't, like, fucking Suits just leave the creators alone, let them do what they're great at and work on it? Let the people who are fans of this, get people who actually love the story, who want to build on the story, not shoehorn in their own things. I hate that. You know, if I was in Star Wars, I already said what I would love to do with Star Wars. I would have just expanded upon, like, Dark Forces. That's what I would have done. That would have been the next stage for me. Like, that would have been the sequel trilogy, would be Kyle-Katarn. That would have been my main focus. You know, I'll even go back to the Old Republic and have Revan, you know, and stuff like that. You know, there was just so many different things, but now people want to force in their political agendas and stuff like that. And I think that's wrong. I honestly think if you're going to get a franchise, just leave it alone. Work on it. Build on it. Don't change anything. Just continue it. If you want to shoehorn in your own shit, make your own fucking franchise. Now that's where, for me, like I'm writing a novel called Truth in Her Eyes. Right, Truth in Her Eyes is my interpretation. It's me trying to do a spiritual successor to a TV show called Forever Night, and that was the fan fiction I was writing. It's called Forever Night's New Blood, and I loved it so much, the writing it, that I wanted to continue it, but I knew I couldn't do Forever Night, so I used my own like IP, and I've been enjoying working on it, and it's something that I really enjoy. And that means then I got complete thing. So if anybody likes it, they can go and read it and they'd be fine. It doesn't piss off the fans. And that's the thing. These franchises have been there for decades. And people have taken over and going, we're going to change these. No. You read the lore, learn from it, play the games, work it out, then go, hold on, this is for the fans. The fans have waited years for this. Let's build something that the fans will enjoy. Not something that I will enjoy, you know. And that's why, like, I mean, Elif, like the fact that they're meant to be this like character that's shoehorned in and all these elements, and then there's a love story and blah 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 blah. It just does not make sense, and it doesn't need to be there. And now I can understand. And they said they want to lead off from that and make more games out of it. And I think, sorry, that's not what you should do. If you want to do that, then go and give that to a studio that wants to do it. But also give the IP to people who do want to make a proper remake of Legacy of Kain, who do want to go and like. I mean, literally, there's so many different things they could remake. They could remake Blood Omen 1. Blood Omen 1, it's dated. It's very dated, and I know I look at it and I really do want to play it, but I just don't like the fact that the way it is, because obviously that's what it was back then, and times have changed, you know, and your tastes have changed over the years. So I really would love to see a Blood Omen 1 remake where it is like how the Blood Omen, the Legacy of Kain remake was going to look. Like, that's what I want to see. And I want to see it like the outworldly type things. Like, Xiled Dweller's soundtrack is great. Like, I love his music. Like, Xiled Dweller's always cool. But I do feel like there's elements. I was listening to some of the songs and I could hear certain parts of like... there was one Close Your Eyes, and I could hear that in Elif. So it's like the problem with that is the soundtrack for like Legacy of Kain. It sounds out of this world, you know, atmospheric. It sounds like it's from that era, you know, like from like the medieval times, and like there's elements of like Eastern music and like Asian type music. It has that type of thing, whereas Xiled Dwellers, it just sounds too much like Xiled Dweller. I mean, Xiled Dweller I do like, and there's some things I dislike about Xiled Dweller. You know, you can't really like someone 100% of the time. You know, there's things that I don't like about a former friend's music. Like, there's some things I don't like about it, but at the same time, I don't hate his music. I just don't like certain elements of it. So, you know, it's stuff like that. But I hope they take note of what the fans are saying. I've given you so many ideas now what they could do. A Bloodborne type Soul Reaver would be so cool, because, like I said, the Defiance is basically Devil May Cry. So if you could do that with, like, you know, Legacy of Kain, like Raziel as a vampire and doing it like Bloodborne, I think that would be so cool. Because, you know, like with Bloodborne, it was all the souls and stuff like that. Now, when you kill them, you get in their blood, and you're becoming more and more like engorged in it, and becoming more and more like a vampire lord. And that's why then at the very end you have that bit where you win and you defeat a vampire lord, and that's when you get your wings, and then obviously it sets up the scene for the beginning of Soul Reaver. That's the way to do it. But tell me what you think. Do you think it's a good idea? Would you love to see that type of thing? I know there was a game called Noskov, which sort of expanded upon with the Southend Brotherhood, and I did like it. I think it's a cool idea, the fact that there is the bloodlines fighting amongst each other with the Southend. I think that is roughly cool, because we don't really see anything apart from, you know, Raziel and Kain. Whereas that, it would make sense, like, because they have their own like clans. That's why they have the the glyphs up because they've got their own clan. So obviously there's going to be other vampires that they'd have. So to have that war is a fucking cool idea. And apparently, even though the server's shut off, people can still play it today. And I'm so tempted to play it because I really am looking forward to it. I always wanted to play as the Raziel clan, because then Raziel was my favourite. I always thought he was cool. I've always tried doing the voices of Raziel and Kain. Like Kain, he's just like, it's just some of the quotes like, given the choice to rule a corrupt and failing empire, or challenge the fates for another throw, a better throw against one's destiny, what was a king to do? And then Raziel was just going like full blown that's why I like more divine. And then he's just like, he just goes, you turned me into a vampire. Keep your friends close, Raziel, and your enemies even closer. You know, stuff like that was just fucking awesome, and that's why, like, you need a good writer to work on it. You need someone that is like the guy who wrote Sinners, or you know, you need someone who's like Shakespearean taught. You can't have like just some random prick writing it. You need to have someone who's got skill, someone who's got like an education, who's, you know, who loves old literature and things like that to build that. But, yeah, anyway, that's enough for me. So please like, comment, subscribe. I've got a Discord. Definitely come and check it out. If you don't support AI, don't worry. There is an AI channel, or an AI category. But when you join, it will ask you the simple question of, do you support AI? If you don't worry. It hides every single thing of AI. So you have that. And I am working on a video to show you how to create media completely free. So that means games, writing, books, whatever you really want. I am working on that, and it's slowly going to be there. But on the Discord as well, we've got like a section where you can showcase your games. If there's any tips and tricks that I've been finding out about, like different game tutorials or Blender and stuff like that, I throw them in the Discord. And it's also a place where you can showcase your game as well. If you're working on a game, please put it in there and show us. You can upload anything on there. You can show us the screenshots, you can show us the work in progress, you can show us concept art, anything. It'll be cool to see, and you know, and if there's demos you want to send out, you know, you can put them on there, and we'll play them. I think there's a few. It's a small community at the moment, and there's a few creators on there who I know who are also YouTubers who also stream. They'll play the games as well if they like them. So you have that. But yeah, all the links are in the description. And as always, stay safe, my Exile friends. Enough said.